Welcome everyone back to another Touchdowns to Home Runs. I'm your host Noah, and I had to put out a video today. I was thinking of content to make. I was like, you know what, we got a good week of college football coming up this weekend. We got Ohio State, Penn State coming up. We got LSU, Auburn. But there's one game that's coming up next weekend that I really want to talk about. Just the significance of this game is getting me really excited, even though I'm not a fan of either of these teams. It's just this game has so much implication on the SEC, my favorite conference, and probably your favorite conference too. And it has so much implication on the college football playoff that I just want to start getting to talk about it now. Get an early start. I'm not going to make my prediction or anything for this game in this video, but I just want to talk about the significance behind it because it is a huge, huge game. I'm going to make my prediction later in my SEC picks video. But of course, I'm talking about the Florida-Georgia 2020 game in Jacksonville. I have to wait to make my pick because we still got games tomorrow. We still got the Kentucky-Georgia game tomorrow and then the Missouri-Florida game tomorrow. So predicting that those go well, which I think will. I have both of those teams winning each of their games. I think that they should win easily as long as they just play consistent and do all the right things to win this game. They shouldn't have too many problems. But other than that, next week, according to plan, this game will decide the East, in my opinion, 100%. I don't see Tennessee bouncing back to be able to win the East. The only other teams that are there are like Missouri, Kentucky, and South Carolina, who many would have thought if it wasn't Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee, it would be Kentucky and South Carolina up next. They are both struggling right now. You can tell I'm a Gamecocks fan. I got the jersey back there. But both of those teams are struggling right now. So, in my opinion, there's two teams that could get it. It's either Florida or Georgia. And this all comes down to this one game. Because let's just look at the upcoming schedule after that game for both of these teams. So, after Georgia plays Florida, they go to Missouri, at home versus Mississippi State, at South Carolina, and at home versus Vanderbilt. Now let's look at Florida's schedule after the Georgia game. Versus Arkansas, at home versus Arkansas, which actually could be a tougher game than a lot of you would have thought at the beginning of the season. At Vandy, at home versus Kentucky, at Tennessee, and at home versus LSU now. For Georgia, first off, looking at Georgia's, those are four easy, winnable games. I do not know if you could have an easier last four-game stretch. I don't know if I could draw it up any better. Missouri is probably the best team out of all those teams right now. They're playing the best out of those four teams right now, which at the beginning of the season, no one would have guessed that. Mississippi State, after the first week, has been playing not good football at all. South Carolina come off a big win against Auburn, and they just went to LSU and we just got our butts slapped hard at LSU, and then at home versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's the worst team in the SEC, no question about it. So those are four easy wins for Georgia, and even if Georgia wins this Florida game and they lose one of these games, Georgia has to lose two extra games because no matter what, Georgia will have the tiebreaker if they win this game versus Florida. So for Georgia to lose the SEC spot to Florida, if they win this game, they're going to have to lose two of these games to Missouri, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt, which in my opinion is very, very hard to happen. They could lose one of them. I still think it's unlikely, but the fact losing two is almost near impossible. Now looking at Florida's, theirs is definitely a bit more tougher than Georgia's schedule after the Georgia game. Arkansas has been playing really good football right now. It's at home, though. It's the Felipe Franks homecoming in Florida. I predict that the fans will be energized because of that. That's just going to be an interesting storyline. Arkansas has been playing decent football, so as long as Florida doesn't take that game lightly, I do think that Florida should be able to win this game easily. After that, to Vanderbilt, easy win there. At home versus Kentucky, in my opinion, that's an easy win. Then the last two are iffy. At Tennessee, Tennessee's not playing good right now, but it's in Tennessee. You never want to play an away game, especially this season. Somehow the home team has been playing so much better than the away team. That's just how the storyline's gone in the SEC. And then at home versus LSU. At home versus LSU, LSU has struggled at the beginning of the season, but after that South Carolina game this last weekend, they have shown that they are doing a lot better. TJ Finley comes in. Their offense is just playing Their offense is good. The defense is where there's questions, and they definitely showed up for that South Carolina game last week. The defense started playing well. They were able to get some takeaways. If LSU's defense starts playing well, that is definitely a game that you got to circle on your schedule if you're a Florida fan, because that game can get pretty scary if Bo Pelini suddenly gets that LSU defense rolling. That is going to be a very, very tough game for Florida. I do think that they should be able to win it, but don't predict that'll be an easy sleepwalk game at all, because if LSU starts going on defense, that team is going to be a problem, even though that they are not going to be able to make the college football playoff this year. So that's why this is a must-win for both teams. Like, no question about it. Whoever wins this game is going to win the East, because the other team dropping 2 games, even though it's way more likely for Florida to drop 2 games than Georgia, it's still unlikely, in my opinion, that the team that wins this game drops 2 of their last 4 or 5 games, because Florida has 5 games and Georgia only has 4 just because of COVID. The LSU game got canceled, so that got pushed back to December the 12th. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. This is a game that no matter what team loses, that fan base is going to be very, very upset and just feel like their season's over after that. Because these are 2 programs that this season especially, you're not looking to make a bowl game, especially Florida. Florida, this is their chance to make the playoff. More than any other year that they've had, this is Florida's chance to make the playoffs. So I feel like if you're a Florida fan and you lose this game, you'll just feel like all these seasons that we've gone into with such high hopes and everything like that, especially this year. This is our year to do something. I predicted Florida winning the East at the beginning of the season. If they lose this game, that is just going to put a hole in recruiting, because recruits are going to see that and be like, well, you guys had the talent this year. You guys were projected that you're going to win the division. Everyone thought that Florida was the best team in the SEC East, and you can't even do that. That's going to look bad for recruiting. And just overall, their coaching change might come up, because Dan Mullen is a great coach. He's a great coach, but there's in those programs that want to be elite and everything like that, you can't settle for 10-2 seasons when you're trying to win a national championship, because that's not going to win you a national championship. You need 11-1 at least. Well, in this case, you need 9-1, because there's only a 10-game season this year. But usually you play a 12-game season, you need 11-1 at least, and hopefully a 12-0 season to make it to the playoff and then actually have a chance at that national championship. Going 10-2 and losing to Georgia every year is not going to make you a national champion. Georgia, on the other hand, Georgia has been fighting to get that playoff spot for so long after 2017. They've come so close. They've made the SEC championship the last 3 years. They won it in 2017, which got them into the playoff, and they lost to Alabama and then LSU last year. They are going to be just frustrated that they're coming so close constantly to making that playoff spot, and they just can't do it. If they lose this game, they're done. Their season's over. You're not going to make the SEC championship, and that second spot in the playoff is not going to be looking good for you. That second SEC team spot, which I think is there. I think that 2 SEC teams deserve to make it this year, because what frustrates me about this season is that there's no conference versus conference games. It's all in-game conference. It's like all in-conference games. There's no different conference games going on, which is really frustrating, because you won't get to see the talent level between the SEC versus like the ACC or the Big Ten or something like that. It frustrates me that you're going to have teams with bad records in the SEC or less than expected records in the SEC. Like, Georgia might lose 2 games. Both Florida and Georgia might have 2 losses. That doesn't mean that they are worse than, let's say, Oklahoma State, who goes undefeated in the Big 12. It's just because the Big 12 is so bad this year. Texas and Oklahoma stink. Oklahoma State goes on to play Texas this weekend. They actually got a bit of a rougher stretch going up the next 3 games. But that's just frustrating that you're not going to get to have the conference comparisons. It's going to be all record-based, which is really frustrating for me. I think that 2 SEC teams should get in, but that's just my opinion. But Georgia, they need to win this game to have a shot at the SEC championship. Even if they lose in that SEC championship and it's to Alabama and that game is close and Alabama is the 1 seed, I still think Georgia can get in, even with 2 losses. If they're both to Alabama and they're able to make that second Alabama loss closer than the first one, I think Georgia still has a shot. So this game huge implications on the line. This is a big recruiting battle game. This is a big just fan base because these guys are bitter rivals. You know that. This is the Battle of the South. I love this matchup. I'm a South Carolina fan. I hate both of these teams. I don't like Georgia. I don't like Florida. When we're playing them, I love talking about them. I love the fan base and everything like that, but I don't like the teams because we play them and we usually lose to them. But this game excites me more than any other South Carolina game has so far, except the Auburn one. That was a fun game. Have to admit that. But this game is exciting for just all college football fans to watch, and I cannot wait to watch this game. Definitely stick around for my prediction of this game in my SEC weekly picks that will be coming up on Sunday or Monday. But thank you for watching this video, guys, and come back next time.